King John of England, widely regarded as one of the most controversial figures in English royal history, reigned from 1199 to 1216. As the youngest son of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, John's ascent to the throne and his subsequent rule were characterized by political strife, military failures, and strained relations with both the nobility and the church. His reign is often cited as a pivotal period that reshaped English governance through the eventual establishment of the Magna Carta. Let's explore in depth John's rise to power, his policies, his conflicts, and the enduring legacy of his reign within the broader historical context. Early life and ascent to the throne. Born on December 24, 1166, in Oxford, John was the youngest of Henry II's 5 sons. Nicknamed John Lackland, he initially inherited no significant landholdings, a stark contrast to his older brothers, who were granted vast territories as part of Henry's strategic efforts to consolidate Angevin power. This lack of inheritance shaped John's early experiences, fostering a sense of ambition and determination that would later define his approach to power. John's early education was unusually thorough for a prince of the time, emphasizing administration, law, and governance. These skills, cultivated under the supervision of his mother Eleanor of Aquitaine and key clerical figures, would prove invaluable during his later rule. However, his formative years were overshadowed by the intense rivalries within his family. The rebellions of his elder brothers against their father, Henry II, created a volatile environment in which loyalty was often fleeting and alliances shifted rapidly. As the youngest, John was often used as a pawn in his father's political maneuvers, further sharpening his understanding of the complexities of medieval power dynamics. John's fortunes began to change following the deaths of his elder brothers William, Henry the Young King, and Geoffrey. These losses reshaped the line of succession and brought John closer to the throne. By the time Richard I inherited the crown in 1189, John had been entrusted with significant titles and estates, including the Countship of Mortain. Despite this, he remained overshadowed by Richard, whose reputation as a warrior and leader earned him widespread admiration. Richard's decision to embark on the Third Crusade in 1190 presented John with an opportunity to assert his influence in England. During Richard's absence, John was tasked with governing England alongside William Longchamp, the Chancellor and Bishop of Ely. However, tensions between the two quickly escalated, leading John to position himself as a rival power within the kingdom. His actions during this period, including an unsuccessful rebellion against Richard in 1193, tarnished his reputation but also demonstrated his political acumen and ambition. John's rebellion ended with his public reconciliation with Richard, who forgave him but remained wary of his younger brother's motives. Richard's untimely death in 1199 marked a turning point for John. With the throne now within his grasp, he faced immediate challenges from his nephew Arthur of Brittany, the son of Geoffrey. Arthur, supported by factions in France and England, posed a significant threat to John's claim. The subsequent conflict between John and Arthur culminated in the latter's capture and mysterious death in 1203. While evidence remains inconclusive, contemporary accounts strongly suggest John's involvement in Arthur's disappearance, an event that would forever tarnish his reputation and fuel accusations of ruthlessness. John's accession was further complicated by the fragmented nature of his inherited territories. The Angevin Empire, spanning England, Normandy, Anjou, and Aquitaine, was a precarious collection of lands bound together by tenuous loyalty and the personal authority of the monarch. John's ability to navigate these challenges would define the early years of his reign as he sought to consolidate his power amidst mounting opposition. Foreign policy and military struggles. A major theme of John's reign was his ongoing struggle to retain English territories in France. The Angevin Empire, which had been built and maintained by his father Henry II and his brother Richard, began to crumble during John's reign. The loss of Normandy in 1204 to King Philip II of France marked a catastrophic blow to John's authority and to England's position in continental politics. This pivotal moment was the result of several factors, including John's inability to garner the loyalty of his Norman barons, the superior military strategy of Philip II, and John's own diplomatic miscalculations. The fall of Normandy dealt a severe blow to John's prestige. It also had economic and strategic consequences, as England lost its access to a key power base that had long served as a bridge between the English and French crowns. John attempted to regain these territories through both diplomacy and force, but his efforts were largely unsuccessful. His inability to establish lasting alliances with European powers further compounded the issue. One of John's most ambitious attempts to recover his continental holdings culminated in the 1214 Battle of Bouvines, where he joined a coalition against Philip II that included the Holy Roman Emperor and the Count of Flanders. Despite the coalition's formidable resources, the campaign ended in a humiliating defeat for John and his allies. The loss at Bouvines was not merely a military failure but a political catastrophe that weakened John's credibility among the English barons. The battle underscored John's inability to coordinate effective military strategies and exposed the limits of his diplomatic influence. John's struggles were not confined to France. In Ireland, he attempted to strengthen Norman control through military campaigns and the establishment of administrative structures. However, his policies faced resistance from native Irish lords and even from Anglo-Norman settlers, who resented John's heavy-handed approach. In Scotland, John's efforts to assert dominance were met with limited success, as he was unable to fully subdue the Scottish monarchy or integrate its territories into his realm. Similarly, his campaigns in Wales were marked by periodic gains that were quickly reversed, highlighting his inability to maintain sustained control over these regions. John's military failures were not solely the result of external pressures, they were also a product of his leadership style. His reliance on mercenaries, often funded through exorbitant taxation, alienated many of his barons. Moreover, John's reputation for mistrust and vindictiveness discouraged loyalty among his commanders and allies. His frequent demands for scutage, a tax levied in lieu of military service, further strained his relationship with the nobility and fueled resentment that would later erupt into open rebellion. The cumulative effect of these foreign policy and military struggles was a kingdom on the brink of collapse. John's inability to secure his continental territories, combined with his failures in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, weakened the monarchy and emboldened his domestic opponents. These failures would have profound implications for the latter years of his reign, setting the stage for the baronial revolt that ultimately led to the sealing of the Magna Carta in 1215. Relations with the Church. John's relationship with the Church was fraught with protracted conflict and political maneuvering, reflecting the broader tensions between royal authority and ecclesiastical power during the medieval period. A key flashpoint was the dispute over the appointment of the Archbishop of Canterbury in 1205, following the death of Archbishop Hubert Walter. The monks of Canterbury elected Reginald, their sub-prior, without consulting John, who subsequently rejected the decision. In response, John nominated his own candidate, John de Grey, Bishop of Norwich. The stalemate escalated when Pope Innocent III intervened, rejecting both nominees and appointing Stephen Langton, a respected theologian and scholar. John's refusal to accept Langton ignited a major crisis. In 1208, Innocent placed England under an interdict, effectively suspending all religious services and sacraments, a move designed to pressure John into compliance. The interdict had profound social and political ramifications, as it deprived the population of essential religious rites, including marriages and burials, fostering widespread resentment toward John's defiance. The situation worsened in 1209 when John was excommunicated, a severe penalty that isolated him from the broader Christian community and undermined his legitimacy. Undeterred, John responded with measures to consolidate his control over church property, seizing ecclesiastical revenues and lands. These actions further alienated the clergy and deepened the rift between the crown and the church. By 1213, the growing domestic unrest and the threat of foreign intervention compelled John to reconcile with the papacy. In a dramatic political maneuver, John submitted to Innocent III's authority, agreeing to accept Langton as archbishop and declaring England a papal fief. This act of submission, while resolving the immediate crisis, was viewed by many as a humiliation that undermined the sovereignty of the English crown. Nevertheless, it restored John's standing within the church and secured papal support, which proved crucial during the baronial revolt that followed. The church conflict highlighted John's broader struggles with balancing royal authority against powerful institutions. While his reconciliation with the papacy temporarily stabilized his reign, it also underscored the limitations of his authority and the extent to which his policies alienated key constituencies. The long-term implications of this conflict would resonate beyond John's reign, influencing the evolving relationship between the English crown and the church in subsequent centuries. Domestic policy and the road to the Magna Carta. Domestically, John's reign was marked by heavy taxation, arbitrary governance, and an increasingly adversarial relationship with the English nobility. John relied heavily on financial measures to fund his military campaigns and maintain his grip on power, leading to widespread discontent among his subjects. The primary method by which he extracted funds was through scutage, a tax levied in lieu of military service. While scutage had been employed by previous monarchs, John's frequent and exorbitant demands stretched the limits of what the nobility was willing to tolerate. Beyond scutage, John exploited the feudal system to raise revenue in ways that were perceived as oppressive and capricious. He imposed fines for minor infractions, levied punitive reliefs on inheriting barons, and demanded hostages from prominent families to ensure their loyalty. These practices not only alienated the nobility but also fostered resentment among lesser landholders and commoners, who bore the brunt of additional taxes. The heavy-handed nature of John's governance eroded trust in the crown and created an atmosphere of discontent across multiple strata of society. John's governance was further marred by allegations of favoritism and corruption. His reliance on a small circle of loyal advisers, including figures like Peter des Roches and Gerard d'Athy, fueled accusations of nepotism and incompetence. These advisers, often foreign-born, were resented by the English barons, who viewed their influence as an affront to traditional feudal hierarchies. This perception of favoritism intensified the barons' grievances and contributed to their eventual rebellion. The culmination of these tensions came in 1215 when John faced a full-scale revolt led by a coalition of disaffected barons. The rebels, supported by influential clergy and local leaders, presented a set of demands intended to curtail royal authority and protect their traditional rights. These demands were formalized in the Magna Carta, a document that sought to limit the king's arbitrary power by establishing principles of accountability and fairness. The Magna Carta addressed a range of issues, including the rights of the church, the regulation of feudal dues, and the administration of justice. It also included provisions aimed at preventing the king from imposing taxes without the consent of his council and ensuring that no free man could be imprisoned or punished without due process of law. While the Magna Carta was initially intended as a practical solution to the immediate crisis, it contained principles that would have lasting implications for the development of constitutional governance in England and beyond. Despite sealing the Magna Carta at Runnymede in June 1215, John's commitment to its terms was short-lived. He sought papal annulment of the charter, arguing that it had been signed under duress, and resumed his efforts to reassert royal authority. This repudiation led to the outbreak of the First Barons' War, a civil conflict that would dominate the final years of John's reign. The war further weakened John's position and underscored the deep divisions within his kingdom. The legacy of the Magna Carta, however, would outlive John. Reissued by his successors with modifications, it became a cornerstone of English law and a symbol of the enduring struggle between authority and accountability. Its influence can be traced through centuries of legal and political developments, shaping the evolution of democratic ideals and constitutional frameworks around the world. Death and legacy. John's death on October 19, 1216, from dysentery during the First Barons' War, marked the end of a turbulent reign. His final months were spent in frantic military campaigns, attempting to regain control over rebellious regions in England and Wales. As the Barons' War raged on, John's health began to deteriorate, compounded by the strain of constant travel and a lack of resources. His death occurred at Newark Castle, and his body was later interred at Worcester Cathedral. The immediate aftermath of John's death saw a kingdom on the brink of collapse. His 9-year-old son, Henry III, ascended the throne under the guidance of a regency council led by William Marshal, 1st Earl of Pembroke. Marshal's leadership was instrumental in stabilizing the realm, negotiating with rebel barons, and reissuing a revised version of the Magna Carta in 1217. This act marked the beginning of a broader effort to restore order and mend the divisions that had fractured the kingdom. While John's reign is often characterized by its failures, his death brought an opportunity for reconciliation and reform. The Magna Carta, initially a response to his mismanagement, became a foundational document in the evolution of constitutional government. Its principles of accountability, the rule of law, and the protection of individual rights resonated through subsequent centuries, influencing legal systems and democratic movements worldwide. John's legacy is a complex one. On the one hand, he is remembered as a deeply flawed monarch whose actions alienated his barons, the church, and much of his kingdom. His reputation for cruelty, mistrust, and greed has been immortalized in both historical accounts and popular culture. Yet, his reign also serves as a turning point in English history, highlighting the limits of autocratic power and the necessity of checks and balances in governance. Historians continue to debate the extent of John's culpability for the crises of his reign. Some argue that he was a victim of circumstances beyond his control, including the loss of the Angevin Empire and the shifting dynamics of medieval Europe. Others contend that his failures were largely self-inflicted, stemming from his inability to inspire loyalty and his penchant for arbitrary rule. Regardless of perspective, John's reign provides valuable insights into the challenges of medieval kingship and the enduring struggle between authority and accountability. In summary, King John's death marked the end of a turbulent chapter in English history, but his legacy endures through the transformative impact of the Magna Carta. His reign, though troubled, set the stage for significant constitutional developments that continue to shape governance and legal thought to this day. Conclusion. The reign of King John, while mired in controversy and marked by significant failures, represents a pivotal moment in the history of governance and law. His tumultuous rule underscores the fragility of monarchical authority when unchecked by accountability and consensus. Yet, from this era of discord emerged one of the most enduring legacies in the form of the Magna Carta. This document, born out of rebellion and dissatisfaction, laid the groundwork for constitutional governance and established principles that resonate to this day. John's reign serves as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for reform. It exemplifies the dangers of autocratic rule, where short-sighted policies and personal grievances alienate key constituencies and destabilize governance. At the same time, it highlights the resilience of institutions and the capacity for innovation in the face of crisis. The Magna Carta, originally a tool for curbing John's excesses, evolved into a beacon for justice, liberty, and the rule of law, influencing legal frameworks across the globe. The complexities of John's legacy remind us that even deeply flawed leaders can inadvertently contribute to transformative change. His failures created the conditions for dialogue, negotiation, and the articulation of rights that extended beyond the feudal hierarchy to shape the principles of modern democracy. By examining John's life and reign, we gain not only a deeper understanding of medieval politics but also insights into the enduring struggle for accountability, fairness, and governance that transcend his time. Ultimately, King John's reign offers lessons that extend far beyond the medieval period. It challenges us to consider the balance between authority and responsibility, the importance of institutional safeguards, and the potential for progress even in the wake of misrule. In this way, his reign, though fraught with turmoil, remains a cornerstone in the narrative of governance and the evolution of legal and political thought. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.